Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Open Up the Workforce, where we speak with executives driving the future of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Clarice Colòn, Vice President of Integrated Talent Management and Global HR, Organizational Development, and Organizational Effectiveness at Whole Foods. Clarice, thank you for being with us today. Would you tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself and your career story?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Clarice, as you've mentioned, and I've been with Whole Foods for about 5 years. I had a very sort of unconventional pathway into my role here. I started out, as one would say, at the very front line. I worked my way up through corporate America, starting in the health and fitness industry. I had responsibilities over operations, ancillary businesses and services, and P&L. Moved into HR in 2003. And ever since then, I've been an HR practitioner working in a variety of different functional areas. As it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, I can really say that has always been a filter by which I looked at my leadership through. And it's always very important to me personally. One, I'm biracial. I'm part Hispanic, part half white. Grew up in the melting pot of New York City for the first 30 years of my life, and have been afforded several opportunities in the corporate world myself based on hard work, ethic, and I've always paid it forward. And I always look for potential in others throughout my career and help others move ahead. So I'm happy to share a little bit more about that as we continue the dialogue.
Thank you so much, Clarice. We're excited to have you on this show with us. I appreciate that your background began very much in the wellness space. I'm currently in yoga teacher training, and it really does impact me in so many ways, how I show up at work. I'm able to show up in so many ways. I'd love to understand your transition into the people and HR space. What led you to being so passionate about it?
I was really passionate about people. I was passionate about leadership. And I actually never planned on pursuing a career in HR. It was actually brought to my attention. I was very fortunate to be working with a male mentor at the time when I was in the health and fitness industry. And I was essentially tapped on the shoulder based on some of the success I'd had in leading high-performing teams. And the opportunity presented itself that they wanted someone with regional background and experience and leadership expertise to move into an HR role. And the rest is history. I accepted the opportunity. I knew that there was more that I could offer, more that I could contribute from the talent side, having learned the business side, and I've enjoyed it ever since. If you think about health and fitness and helping individuals achieve health, wellness, vitality through overall fitness, health, and wellness, I really just apply the same lens on the career side, and that is helping individuals identify potential that they have in themselves to pursue career opportunities. It was such a natural transition for me to move from helping individuals achieve holistic health to helping individuals achieve career health and overall fulfillment.
That is so beautiful. And it makes me feel even more inspired and proud of the work that we're doing in this space, because it does naturally transition. It's very organic and very powerful in so many ways, because it is a long-term career, impacts your economic opportunities and jobs. At Symba, we are focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, as you know well, and would love to understand at Whole Foods, what are the steps that you've taken to ensure that diversity and inclusion are truly at the forefront and integrated into all aspects of the employee experience?
Yeah, Whole Foods has obviously been around for 40 years, and always, even before joining Whole Foods, I always admired the diversity and the experience at the Whole Foods stores, having been a customer before joining the company. There is a lot that we do where we are accepting applicants without, you can work at a store. We will set you up for success through our new member connections or new member orientations. And then we create a pathway for ongoing growth and development. We're a very team member centric organization where growth and development is very much a part of who we are in terms of the opportunities that we create. So there is no linear cut. It's not climbing a ladder necessarily. It's more like climbing a rock wall. And there's so many opportunities within our company that can inspire individuals to hone their craft, whether they're an artisan and a foodie, and they just really want to spend their time engaging with customers and selling the healthiest organic foods on the market, so they can move through that route and they can become an artisan or an individual contributor that continue that pathway, or they can go into a leadership role. And we've stood up multiple different programs, whether it's early career development from a leader of self to a leader of others, whether it's that artisan path to apprenticeship programs, whether I want to be a butcher, maybe I want to be a cheese expert, wine and cheese expert. There's so many different opportunities for our team members. And we've also tried to identify potential barriers for ongoing advancement. We have a very diverse population, and we want to make sure that there aren't any in getting someone from, say, an entry-level role to next-level leadership roles. So we recently just piloted with an external organization that is helping us with English as a second language. We're also looking at digital literacy. Those types of barriers we found to be potential blockers for individuals that may not speak English as their native language to advance forward within the organization. So there are a lot of things that we're doing. We also just proudly launched our first formal mentorship program. Mentoring was always an informal part of Whole Foods DNA, but we opened up the opportunity to spread the advantage of mentorship connections throughout our entire network. So we have mentors that have opted in, and then we have those that are desiring to pursue specific career pathways. They essentially go into our system of record, read the bios of all these mentors, and then create those connections. So there's lots of things that we're doing organically and formally with regard to advancing for individuals to find fulfillment.
Oh, incredible. We are such big advocates of these pathway programs. We support internships, apprenticeships, and we really do believe in how they set up talent for success. As a leader, I know you are involved with multiple different initiatives and strategies. How do you measure the success of these programs and continue to sustain buy-in and resources for them?
Yeah. What we typically try to do is we obviously measure the participation, the level of engagement, team member sentiment. We try to pulse check at various sort of pivotal moments of truth, is what I call it, throughout the team member life cycle to assess whether or not a team member is finding value in the programs that we're offering. And if that value is translating to higher levels of engagement, higher levels of performance and productivity, which will then yield promotional opportunities, advancement opportunities. So we do weekly pulse checks within our company every week. We also have our annual engagement survey. So there are a multitude of ways that we're listening through our continuous listening programs that I just mentioned to engage team member sentiment and satisfaction with programs. And then there's also the hard metrics. There's also how many inter promotions are we seeing? And we see quite a bit of that at Whole Foods Market. And then we look at the diversity of opportunities. So there are lots of things that we can do to be more aware and to activate other channels or other pathways if we see that we're not gaining the traction that we would like.
That's fantastic to hear. And I love the example that you shared about partnering up with another organization to address some of the blockers.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we constantly iterate, right? Once we launch with all these, not like survey collection data, like what are we doing with it? Yeah. We'd love to understand your process. Once you capture that sentiment, how do you actually, really take action on it?
Well, we work with local leaders. We also work with our local HR business partners, and we keep it front of mind. If we're launching, we have cyclical career development programs in each of our areas. So when the next session opens up, we are creating where you might have gaps or opportunities and representation, and encouraging that we are seeking out and offering up these opportunities. Oftentimes it's confidence. It's not necessarily capability that's preventing someone from applying for a role. We are encouraging our leaders to tap on the shoulder. I was tapped on the shoulder. I would have never wound up in a career in HR had someone not identified that opportunity or that potential in me. So we are encouraging our leaders and HR business partners to be more vigilant in identifying potential, but then we're also we launched what we're calling our success skills program, which is essentially a competency framework that is helping our team members understand what success looks like in a behavioral framework and a performance framework. So that tends to eliminate the competence when I know to do this job, these are the skills that I need, and these are the competencies or the behaviors that I need to accept in order to be successful in this job. So if I know that, I can then assess my current state and build a development plan to get me ready for that next job.
Wow, that is amazing. I feel like I could probably learn from you and discuss that for hours, but I would love to understand, how did you get to that stage? Because a lot of organizations are scratching their head when it comes to building out any framework like that. Like, it is a dream state, but to actually get there and build something like that is not easy.
Yeah, we've just recently launched it, so we're still tracking and trying it out and measuring. We've always had our core values. We introduced our leadership principles most recently over the past 5 years. What we found that was missing was that the actual actionable behaviors or observable behaviors that help our team members achieve those ultimate outcomes or achieve those aspirational or guidelines, if you will. So it was a process where it was very cross-functional. We built a coalition of key stakeholders and worked through a process of identifying what are the observable behaviors that one needs to do well at from a how perspective in order to think, to lead, to work in a way that is aligned with our core values and leadership principles. So it's not necessarily a lengthy process. It is pretty comprehensive. And there's lots of sort of tests to see, do we have the right behaviors in place? And is it yielding the team member sentiment results that we're looking for, the engagement, the performance, et cetera? So we're still sort of in that phase to make sure that we've gotten it right.
Well, I'm excited to check in once you have some more findings from it, because I think that is the future in so many ways. They're very forward thinking, especially when you talked a little bit earlier about the lack of and the need for a college degree. Really, I think that leans on skills and frameworks like this in order to make that type of recruiting model very successful. So I really appreciate that, and hope our listeners can understand that there is an opportunity to really do this, that it's not more of a dream state that, Whole Foods is doing it, and there's an opportunity for them to also do the same.
Sure.
Yes. Well, given that you are running so many incredible pipeline and pathway programs, I'd love to hear about your perspective on how you might want to evolve these programs to actually grow them, change them at Whole Foods.
We have lots of thoughts and ideas around doing that. Certainly, these are ones that we would like to continue to monitor and measure, tweak, and iterate so that we can ensure that we're obtaining the results that we're looking for. We also just started launching our campus recruitment program. We're looking at potentially partnering with culinary institutes so that we are capturing early hires while they're still studying a particular craft and introducing them to potential opportunities within Whole Foods. So there are things that we're doing even outside of our own four walls, if you will, or our business to try to attract early talent while they're maybe considering what's next for me. What am I going to do when I grow up? So we're trying to get in at those early stages.
Thank you for sharing. My co-founder and I, we became really good friends based off of food. We're both really big foodies and love a Whole Foods. I think you can often find me at the cheesemonger. So what a great initiative, because it is really competitive in that space.
It is.
To tap into the culinary and, long-term success and opportunities. So really appreciate that you are investing in that for early talent and making that possible.
Yep, agree.
So for us, our whole vision at Symba is around this mission of open up the workforce. To us at Symba, that means creating equitable access to jobs and wealth creation. I would love to get your perspective, Clarice. What do you think needs to happen to open up the workforce?
I think that we as leaders, as business leaders, as HR practitioners, need to recognize that the labor market is changing. It's shifting. Demographics are shifting. Conventional methods for attracting and hiring talent aren't always going to work in the future of work, whether that is how you're designing the job, whether that means creating additional flexibility within the work environment or scheduling, or whether that means we should be looking at, what are the jobs that require college degrees versus what are the jobs that maybe require a high school education or a trade school certification? So I do think we need to think a little bit more broadly about the channels of talent and where we're getting that. And perhaps, what are we doing in terms of being even more creative in seeking out non-traditional talent pipelines? So I think it's about thinking outside of the box, being a little bit more creative. And then certainly there's the evolution of AI and automation and all of those types of things, and figuring out how does that sort of complement our human capital strategy, but not lose the essence of, in a customer service business like ours, you need people, you want people engaging and interacting and smiling at our customers, but how can we become more efficient in other ways that are perhaps not customer facing to help eliminate some of the more monotonous or transactional work that team members might not enjoy doing? So I think it's a figuring out a balance in a way that we can leverage newer technology to help complement the busy work or the tasks that need to happen in the day-to-day environment, and leverage our talent for more meaningful work, more higher value work.
As a startup, we share that perspective in so many ways. How do we use technology to drive efficiency so that we can tap into what makes us so powerful and strong, which is that creativity, right? The channels that you're talking about, developing new pathway programs for emerging talent to become chefs and apprenticeships. Yeah. And we really appreciate your leadership in this space and all the things that you're setting into motion. Before we wrap up, Clarice, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I just want to encourage everyone that is wanting to fulfill their destiny or fulfill their dreams is to not give up, and to know that there is opportunity out there. You just have to go and seek it out and work hard, but also be creative in your approach. For those that are hiring and for those that are entering the workforce, it's so important to put your hand and to speak up and to challenge yourself and try new things. As a fitness practitioner, I used to say, if you don't stretch, you don't grow. If you don't, put additional pressure on those muscles, they're not going to respond. I say the same thing in the work environment. If you don't stretch, if you don't get outside of your comfort zone, you're not going to grow in your career. So get uncomfortable and pursue what you are to do.
Thank you for that inspiration. I'm incredibly motivated. I know this is audio only, but I'm smiling and nodding over here. So really appreciate that insight and the connection between the two. It's so powerful. Thank you, Clarice, for being with us today. And thank you again for all the work and impact you're having.
Thank you for having me.